the other thing that's interesting about travel is when you read about countries from afar and you look at government websites that warn you about things going on there, the world sounds like a really scary place that you shouldn't venture into. But when you do venture into it, you realize like that was the 1,000 to 10,000 foot report of what's happening. But when you come to the like 5 foot distance, it's like, oh yeah, like you can't judge a whole country or a whole continent for things going on in a specific place.
Hey everyone, this is Kim O'Neill from the Every Day is a New Day podcast and live show, and you're listening to the Going North podcast with the hilarious Dom Brightman. Be sure to subscribe to his show so you don't miss any episodes, and remember, every day is always a new day.
Coming at you again, it's the host Dom Brightman, just highlighting a review of the podcast, and this one is actually from a past guest, Julian Hayes II. It's a 5-star review, inspiration plus practicality. If you're looking for a jolt to get your day going and to keep moving forward with your goals, tuning into Dom's podcast is a wise decision. Besides the countless inspiration from the guests from all walks of life, you'll receive actionable takeaways and full laughs along the way. Thanks to my man Julian for leaving that great review. And if you too want to be highlighted in a future review on the podcast, just leave a review about the podcast, what you like about it, and share it with others via Apple Podcasts or on the website goingnorthpodcast.com. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GNP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, is the Going North podcast. And we got another super special, awesome human for you today, folks. That's right, indeed. Another one courtesy of the magicalpodmatch.com, where the box of matches is a box of super special, awesome humans. And they light your shows on fire, y'all. They light your shows on fire. Because this one right here today is no different, because my goodness, she got a fire in her belly to get some movement happening, because she's an international best-selling author who's a New York Times featured corporate worker bee turned full-time travel coach. You heard that right, folks. If you want to stop moving like a snail and start moving like a bunny rabbit across the globe, you have found your gal right here, because she's been in 27 countries and 6 continents over the past 4 years. That's right, folks. So bachelor's degree swag in terms of travel, baby. That's right, indeed. So let's give it up for the one, the only, HM herself. Not the H&M store, but the heavenly and marvelous Heather Markel. How you doing today, Heather?
I'm good. See, HM is also Her Majesty, right? So it's all good. I'm great. How are you doing?
Okay, Her Majesty. There we go. Queen Heather with all the feathers. All right, there we go. That's what I'm talking about.
People used to call me Heather Feather, so all good. You got it.
Her Majesty has all the feathers and all the marvelosity. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. And you're the first one to get me to say marvelosity, so this is good.
Oh, wow. Marvelosity is quite a good word. I might have to reuse that.
Oh, yeah. It's usually fabulosity, but I think I've been using that one in the lexicon a little more than I should. So it's like, oh, wait, marvelosity. How the heck have I not thought of that recently?
I love creating words. That's great.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And I hear you like creating great experiences too.
I do. I do. Much more than creating the bad ones that I had before I went for the better ones.
Oh, man, that's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Well, since it's your first time on the show, I usually like to get folks' backstories so that way folks can know a little bit more about the guests. Am I filling in any cavities I may have missed about you, Heather?
Let's see. Wow, where to start? Yeah, no, you got my bio down, and I'm originally from New York City and have been traveling since, well, I quit my job in 2017, started traveling in 2018, been traveling ever since, including, well, it was supposed to be a 3 or a 6 month career break, really, but oops. And I got marooned in New Zealand I know, right? So I got marooned in New Zealand for 2 years during the pandemic. So quite an adventure it's been.
Ah, sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's right. 5 years now, y'all. That's right. Five. She has found the thumb, y'all. That's right, indeed.
Yes. And loving it. Yeah. So I feel really fortunate because what's interesting is that I learned to love not just travel, but immersing in a culture, which is very different than being a tourist. When I was 16, I went to live with a host family in Normandy, France, who actually I just visited a couple weeks ago. And I spent a month there. I had high school French under my belt. They didn't speak any English with me. So I had just for a month had to figure out if I didn't know the word for it, I needed to use the words I did have to describe something around the word I needed. And then I came away from that experience fluent in French, loving cows because it's a family that has a farm. And with this sense of, wow, the world is so cool. I want to go see more of it. And as you do, you graduate college, and I went into corporate and well, actually, my first job was pretty cool. I worked for France Telecom, and I got to travel to France all the time and go to Europe and things like that. But slowly, my career became much more domestic focused, and my travel was just vacation travel. And it got more and more depressing. I ended up in the wrong marriage for myself and, unhappy at work, unhappy in my marriage. And that, of course, I found when we have emotional pain and we don't deal with it, then it becomes physical pain. And in my case, I herniated 2 discs in my
Ooh,
neck,
ouch.
which, yeah, like that was seriously, I've never had a child, but I think it's up there with, I mean, childbirth though, like the pain lasts a few minutes, whereas like the herniated disc can last for, ages. So then I came away from that. I finally, though, that gave me the courage to get out of the marriage, but I was still in that job. And the thing that I always, when I looked around, what do I want to do? Because there's, I don't know about you, but when I read job descriptions, I was never like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. So, it's funny because we have to write the resume and the cover letter to like
Ugh.
right, but it has to be really well thought out in terms of what the employer wants to see. But I feel like when they write a job description, it's not written in the terms that we want to see. So I eventually just, I'm like, well, what I love doing is, traveling and meeting people, but who does that for a job? And eventually I was confronted in 2017 with a pain in my chest. And I realized, there's my emotional pain giving me the chance to make a change before it changes me. And so I took that call and I decided to quit and just have a leap of faith that things would somehow work out, which is really hard to do. And I quit before the Great Resignation. So back then it was just more crazy. So I was relieved in a way when the Great Resignation, when the pandemic started, and there were all these articles about people thinking about what do they want from their life. I was like, wow, this is exactly what I've gotten to contemplate by taking the break from my career. And, as time went on and those thoughts became people leaving and doing something else, I felt like, wow, I wasn't crazy. I was just a trendsetter, and I just went before the wave. And now there's a wave of people and it's wonderful. And it doesn't matter how old you are and it doesn't matter what job you're in. It's the time. Right now is the time to just go.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. It's time to go, y'all. That's right indeed. It doesn't even have to all be north. You can go south if you want. That's right indeed.
Exactly. Or east or west or any variant in between.
There you go. That's right. As long as ain't no CV variant, y'all. Don't go in that variant direction. That's stupid. That thing is asinine. It is resilient.
Oh,
That thing needs to tap out already. We want a human already. We want to go
yep.
full human.
Yes,
Yes,
definitely.
indeed. And you're so right. The time is definitely now, and I'm glad you mention that too because there's like, I guess one of the things that a lot of it's kind of like one of those silent things under the diversity umbrella, like ageism, under like
Yes.
racism, where it's like, oh yeah, you're too young to do this. Oh, you're too old.
Yep.
You're past your prime, and it's like, dude, have you seen people in their upper ages, like in their 60s, 70s, and 80s? Like they have more energy than the 20-year-olds and the teens these days because they grew up with more energy and they kept up a bit and they even modified to where they're still alive to where kids they're in front of screens nowadays and they don't have as much energy to keep up. And like the younger folks, it's like, hey, like technology, that digital divide, like you're gonna have them as your great niece or great grandkid fixing up your technology. So like it's just that piece to remind folks like, hey, age doesn't matter when it comes to probably about 99% of the things, depending on what you want to do.
Yep. It's so true. When I first looked at doing this, I looked around on social media and the places that were getting the attention for the research that I saw, it looked like you had to be a millennial to just quit your job and go travel. And there just wasn't really, I couldn't find anyone to support me because this idea was just crazy and I didn't really see me, do you know what I mean, reflected anywhere. And once I went out on the road, all of a sudden I met tons of other people who were out there having quit their jobs and traveling for, random amounts of time and all different ages. And suddenly it's like I'd found my tribe. I'm like, oh, so I wasn't crazy after all. There's like other people out here doing this. And it was such a relief. And I think more and more I am seeing people, 50 plus is I think the new market of people that are, certainly you've got retirees. I think people that were retired, it was more normal, but those of us that are, mid-career and quitting to travel was something that you didn't see. And now there's a lot more of it. Although, of course, now with the advent of remote work, you don't even have to quit your job if you don't want to. You can actually keep your job and just do it from multiple places in the world, which is another great thing to come out of the pandemic.
Yeah. Funny enough, as you're saying, it reminded me of this darn meme I saw. I think it was like last year. It was like a picture of a chick in a swimsuit with a laptop where it says, all right, folks, report to back to work Monday morning. It's like you're already in the Bahamas
Oh,
doing
yeah.
remote work.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Good one. Yep, why not?
It's like, got a cold slick.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Yep, definitely.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I love the fact that you mentioned that you immerse yourself in the culture, and I'm assuming that's probably how you got to where you have a six pack in terms of language retention, because you can speak six languages, right?
Yeah, so it's my French host family really got me into languages because I mean I had to in, I guess it was high school. Actually, it was middle school. We were forced against our will to like pick Spanish or French, and we had to learn a second language. And when I got to France, and was I think I had, so I was an only child at the time. I have a brother now, but the there I went into a family of 8 kids, which for me was overwhelming. New York City girl, only child, gets placed in a farm family in the middle of nowhere with 8 siblings, boom, and a herd of cows and a dog or two. It was just like a lot. So uh, they I think that two or three of my host sisters spoke English, but my host mom didn't want them to speak English with me because she felt very strongly that I had come to France to learn French, which at the time I was upset about, but now I'm so grateful about. And she introduced me to the concept of like the ugly American, right? And that can be, I mean, really any nationality. But when you travel the world and you expect everyone to speak English or speak your language, and I'm like, I don't want to be that. So even now, when I go to a country that I don't speak the language, I always try to. I have a notebook, and I try to learn at least, hello, please, thank you, where's the bathroom, things like that in the local language. because I found over and over that just when you make that little effort to speak their language, they're so much more receptive and kind than if you just expect them to cater to you. So yeah, so the languages came as a result of that. I went into college and just got kind of obsessed and had Latin. I studied Latin actually in high school, which was a great base for all the Romance languages. And then I decided to study Japanese for some reason. I don't know. And then I went to Japan, so I got to use that. So that was cool.
Woohoo!
Yep.
That's what I'm talking about. And how was Japan?
I loved it. It was so funny for me seeing Japanese people outside of Japan. I was always taken that they seem to travel in a group. They're like sort of like an amoeba. Do you know what I mean? Like the group travels together and there's like a crowd of them. Because I usually am seeing a group of tourists, right? And then when I went to Japan, I remember how weird it was that I was like, oh, people walk as individuals, but in crowded places, I felt like they walked with the perfectly equal amount of space between each other. It was really weird. So, and then I felt really like a little bit weird because so I loved cartoons growing up, and Japanese anime is like really cool. And then the girls dressed like in the Japanese anime. It was like exactly like Japanese anime, and I couldn't stop like looking at these girls dressed like the anime, and I was like, oh my god, I feel like really weird looking at these girls. I don't mean to. It's just I'm so fascinated that it looks like the cartoon in reality. So yeah. Plus, I love Hello Kitty, which I don't know if you are familiar with Hello Kitty, but it's designed by Sanrio, and it's like a character that's Japanese, and they have a huge Hello Kitty store in Tokyo. And so I got my fill of Hello Kitty everywhere.
Oh, meow indeed. Sweet
Yeah.
anime fan. I didn't even get this in the research process. So top 3 anime, what are they?
Oh,
For you
I
anyway.
don't.
Your
Well, I
favorites.
don't know. I don't remember the shows. I just liked the concept, but I don't, and I haven't watched anime in a long time. But sorry, I can't answer the question.
Ah, disappointment. Sweat drop.
There's like a big X. I'm like we're on Family Feud, and I just X.
Survey says, oh man.
It is. Exactly. Whoops. Next question.
Oh, well, that's really cool. Yeah, because Japan's actually on my list of places to visit indeed. So you got to see Tokyo. Is there any other parts of Japan that spoke out to you? Maybe Kyoto, or is there other
Yep.
spots you recommend folks to check out?
Well, at the time I only got to Tokyo, Kyoto, and Nara, and I would recommend all of those. So I also love Oshinkomaki, and Kyoto is, I think, the capital of the pickles. You get like so many different varieties of them. It's amazing. So yeah, that was one of my favorite places. So it just I think and actually when I was in Tokyo, my friend's mother took me to meet a sumo wrestler, which I felt so bad about because we went early in the morning, the day I was making my flight home. So she rings the doorbell of this house and nobody answers, and she rings it and rings it and rings it for like 10 minutes.
Oh
And
boy.
this big man shows up in a bathrobe, hair disheveled, clearly woken clean out of his wonderful sleep. And he looks at me, and you can tell he wants to just really let me have it. And then he looks at my friend's mom, and they have to obey their elders, so he couldn't do anything. And then the poor guy who's angry, can't express it, in a bathrobe with his hair disheveled, is then asked to pose for the stupid American's camera and get a photo. It's just like, oh gosh, I feel so bad. And thankful to my friend's mom, but still. Yeah. So
So do you share that photo often?
no, I haven't lately. I feel like, well, if that were me, I probably wouldn't be so happy. So I think back then I probably put it, on a website or something, but that it's gone. I don't know. So yeah,
It's like, oh, she has protection. Darn it. The
yep,
elder's here.
exactly. It's exactly what he
Please.
thought in Japanese. So it's more like hakataka raka, but like, you know, but anyway, same concept. Yeah.
Oh, me like you, indeed. So my goodness. So this bubbly personality traveling the globe, embracing all the languages that you can possibly pick up, and possibly working for espionage and being a spy.
Possibly. Yep.
Yes, indeed. If
Can't
I'm
tell you
just
about that though. Yeah.
yeah, if it's G14 classified, I bet I had a
Yep.
feeling.
Yep.
Yes, yeah. She Heather's trying to get in your brain, y'all. That's right. That's right. That's
Already there. That's all right. That step's already done. We're on the next one. Oh shoot, I wasn't supposed to say that. You can edit that out, right?
I don't know. I don't know. I might be under my control by you by now. I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah.
so with all this wonderful stuff that you're doing, you actually was a shy girl growing up. So what helped you to really break out of your shell? Was it the herniated discs, or was it before that, or was it just the jobs, or like what helped you to break out of that shell and just keep on going and growing?
I think honestly my host mom actually in that family was the first step where I mean I went super shy and I remember at the dinner table there were my 8 siblings, 2 parents, possibly some cousins. So it's this huge table with a lot of people, and at that time I spoke broken French, and so I didn't quite understand what people were saying, but they were looking at me and laughing, so I felt like they were teasing me. And uh I would look up at the ceiling so that I wouldn't cry, and it was just like this just hard time. And then my host mom ended up she'd like pushed me into the center of attention. I remember we went to some cultural events, and one of them there were people dancing and they were taking people from the audience to dance with, and she like pushed me and I had to go. So I just felt like there was a lot of she, and then my host dad, he just noticed me, like at that crowded table he would notice me and smile at me and wink at me. And I think the combination of being like seen and heard and encouraged really started pushing me out of my shell. And then I think probably one of my, like, as time went on, like my first longer term boyfriend like also encouraged me to just get out there and do stuff. And at some point I just one of the skills that I love that I have is like I just basically will walk up to anyone anywhere and just talk to them, unless they look really scary or I get a bad vibe off them. But other than that, I just love just chatting with people. So I'm so grateful that I got pushed into the center and encouraged, because it's such a gift when you travel full time to be able to, especially when you're traveling solo, to be able to just make new friends is just a great trait to have.
Oh, yeah, great trait to have indeed. That's right indeed. Say hello to the kitty, y'all. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. And that's freaking awesome. So getting out of that wonderful shell and now no longer being a ghost in a shell, now you're full friendly human, visiting folks across the globe and
Yes.
learning as you go. So my goodness, my goodness. So what's it been like traveling in this pandemic? Heck, let alone living in well, then again, I think New Zealand was one of the places that actually wasn't hit as hard with the COVID, if I'm not mistaken, right? So how was this whole experience for you?
So I I went to New Zealand February 2020. I was there a few days and I was like, wow, this place is expensive. I got to get out of here. So I'm going to do like 3 weeks and run around like the South and North Islands and then go visit my friend in Australia. And when I was in Rotorua on the North Island, they declared the pandemic. And I was like, all right, I'll just go up north for a week because it's supposedly nice up there. And then um, I'll figure this will blow over after a week. And then they're like, all right, we're locking the country down, and essentially you can stay or go because my visa was still good. And they said, if you go, you need to go now. And I used points to go. So I paid like 40,000 points and 26 US dollars for a one-way ticket. And my flight back was going to be $5,000.
Ouch.
And then I would have gone back to New York, which then was the epicenter of the pandemic in the US. And, they're like, well, if you stay, we don't know when you can leave. I'm like, oh, okay. So I decided to stay because mostly like to go back to the center of the pandemic seemed like a bad idea. And it was still excruciating because it's like, oh, it's to have the luxury of choosing where you want to go taken away from you is strange. And then it was like, oh, I'm not home, so I'm traveling sort of, but then I can't leave. Like I'm locked into a country that it was just weird for me. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I think, everyone, we were locked down for 75 days. I'm sure I had similar feelings to other people, but in the end, I was living on basically 5 acres of nature. So instead of being caged into a small apartment in New York, I had 5 acres that were I was so lucky to find a place with there were 2 stranded couples, one from America, one from England, and they the place we stayed was normally open to the public, but it was closed off just for us. So every day I got to walk in nature, and there's nothing like, nature to when you're stressed or going through this weird pandemic. That was beautiful. And like you said, after the lockdown, we had a year of no COVID. So while the world was falling apart and worried about, not enough toilet paper, I was traveling around New Zealand, plenty of toilet paper. There, there was no food shortages. There was because everything's made in New Zealand, so I felt like so lucky to be there. And then, to get to go to both Australia and Singapore after that, because, back last November, they were closed off. Australia was closed off to everyone except Australians and New Zealanders for like the week that I got my flight over there. And then Singapore had limited opening. So I felt like really lucky. And now, I came to France a month ago, and I got COVID for the first time like 2 days after I got here. So that was weird. Luckily, it was a mild case. And so now it's just this strange but interesting time to travel, because I always love being able to learn about current events and history in the location you're in rather than reading about it. So, I come to France, and the first thing that's going on is there's a mustard shortage. And if you've never been to France, like mustard is a very key ingredient here, and they eat like merguez sausage, and to like have a merguez sausage and not have mustard to go with it is just alarming. It's just like so, um, and then to learn that part of the reason for that shortage, there's several reasons, but part of it is the war in, the Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia are in the top 5 countries that produce mustard seed, and that stream is shut down because of the war. So to learn about that, and that there's probably going to be a gas shortage in Europe because it depends where you get your gas from. But all of these things that are, that you learn. And also, the other thing that's interesting about travel is when you read about countries from afar and you look at government websites that warn you about things going on there, the world sounds like a really scary place that you shouldn't venture into. But when you do venture into it, you realize like that was the 1,000 to 10,000 foot report of what's happening. But when you come to the like 5 foot distance, it's like, oh yeah, like you can't judge a whole country or a whole continent for things going on in a specific place. So I also think that it's important that we see the world and we meet the people of the world to get a real sense of what's happening, because the people of any country are not the same as their government, and it's easy to forget that. And media and politics is it's easy to get us all worked up over things that might not be exactly as they're being reported.
Ah, that's what I'm talking about. Indeed, so many heat bombs. Indeed, that's right. Indeed, that heat, y'all. Heather's bringing that heat, y'all. That's right. Indeed. That's right. Don't be scared. That's right. Indeed. Avoid the propaganda rags, y'all. That's right. Indeed. It ain't that
Yep,
bad. That's right. Indeed. That's right. Indeed. And heck, because you're traveling solo still, right?
I am. Yes. It's something I love in that I get to meet other people and so I don't always feel alone, but at certain times I'm like, oh, it'd still be nice to like travel with people. This trip in particular, because I know so many people in France, I actually have stayed with friends or members of my host family the whole time. So I actually, even though I'm traveling alone to get to them, I haven't been alone. When I get on to some future travel coming up next week, I will be going on my own again and going back to meeting people and seeing how it goes. And the thing that I find full-time travel really magical because so I'm planning to go to Croatia next, and I was I had lunch in a cafe in Paris, and was the hostess of the restaurant was lovely. We spoke a bit, and then I met a German couple there and an Australian couple there. And then when I left, the hostess and I got chatting, and I told her I was going to Croatia, and she told me I had to go talk to her chef because she's from that area. And so I went and talked to the chef, and it turns out the chef is going over to Croatia like the same time I am. So we exchanged numbers, and she invited me to check out her town, which is like right on the seafront. And so I just love those connections where you just it's the last thing on your mind, and then you end up meeting someone that like offers you help in the place that you're going. I think that's just lovely.
Woohoo! That's right, indeed. Some would probably call it law of attraction. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Attracting that positivity to your life, all the good vibrations, y'all. That's
Yes.
right. That's right. Feel it, feel it. All the good vibrations. That's right. That's right, indeed. That's right. We got the Markel, and the traveling bunch.
Yes, we do. We do.
Even though right now her big solo is Hall No style go solo. Let me stop.
Yep. Yep, indeed.
So my goodness. So as with all wonderful podcasts, you've been on a boatload of these and recent history, and you're still putting out some great magical content for folks to devour and consider. So is there a question that you wish you be asked more often when you're on the guest side of the game on these podcasts?
Wow. I love creative questions. It's fun. So let's see. A question I don't love is like, what's my favorite country? Because, can't pick one. Let's see. What's a question I wish people would ask? I would say, curiosity about full-time travel and like, how to get started, or do I have any regrets about like leaving a corporate job to travel full time? Those are good questions.
Ah, yeah, that's right. So, what's your favorite country? Let me stop. I ain't gonna answer
I
that
knew it. Ah, yeah.
nah, that ain't the question. That's too lazy of a question. Instead, you got this wonderful book out that you were a co-authoring called Voice of the 21st Century: Conscious, Caring Women Who Make a Difference. That's right indeed. So if that book was a food, what would it be and why?
Oh my gosh. Now there's a creative question. Let's see. You know what? It would be tapas, because, and it would be like an assortment of tapas, because there are 50 amazing women that contributed stories into that book. And I share my story about like my decision, why I left corporate, the impact of traveling full time on my life. And I feel like, yeah, because tapas are always like, you can have sweet, you can have spicy, you can have savory, you have so many different ones and different foods. They can be squishy, they can be, you know, harder, they can be crackly. And I think the book is like that too. They're all kind of different, really interesting stories that have very different emotions associated with them. And yeah, and I love tapas too.
Ah, there we go. Tapas. So what are tapas for those who don't know?
And so we're clear. TAPAS. I didn't say topless. I said tapas. So Spanish tapas.
My mind wasn't even going in that direction, but okay.
Just in case any viewers like, what does she say? So so yeah, tapas are basically like little small tasting plates. Mostly, I think we're probably more familiar with them from like Spanish tapas. So you've got like 5 croquettes or a few pieces of shrimp marinated in olive oil, or manchega cheese, or nowadays some restaurants do like little tasting plates. So you might have those like mini burgers, like 3 sliders could in a way be a kind of tapas. So it's really just small tasting plates of different foods.
Ooh, well, there we go. That's a different answer for that question, indeed. It's definitely a first, the topless, y'all. That's right. Not topless though. Not topless. You're not getting a naked plate of no food. That's weird. Like,
Yes,
no.
that would be. Very agreed.
Exactly. It's like, here you go. Here's your food, buddy. It's like, where's the food? It's imaginary. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is, if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're in 2022 still with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would say follow my heart and really not let other people's opinions of what they think life should look like or they believe is best for you have more weight than what you think and know is best for you, and to just go for what your heart is calling you for, and just have trust and faith that it will somehow work out.
Ah, yeah, it'll work out indeed. That's right. Heather will show you how to get those 6-pack traveling abs, y'all. That's right, indeed. You too can
Yes.
travel to 6 continents. That's right. That's right,
Yes.
indeed. I have an ab in my brain for every continent, y'all. That's right. That's right, indeed.
Wow, I'm just trying to think of your brain as abs. That's a weird image.
I mean, if you want, you can have the Hello Kitty as a brain instead.
I think that would be nicer. Yeah.
Now that would be an anime. It's like, yeah. So it's the year 2075. Hello Kitty fell off the map, but for some reason there's a strange village colony where everybody is Hello Kitty on the brain, literally, and they pray to this giant Hello Kitty on a Motorola Razr smartphone.
Oh my
It's
God. Yep. That I can see. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. They even have an ancient bookstore. They even have Heather Markel's first book in stock. It's amazing.
Yes. Woohoo. And hopefully the follow-ups, whatever they are, when they come out.
Ah, there you go. So, any idea of when the first solo project, a full Heather, will release?
No, right now I'm working on getting more speaking. So my next venture is to travel and speak. So working on that now.
Ah, me lucky, me lucky. Well, that's what I'm talking about. So, folks need to hire Heather to speak at your next virtual summit, real life corporate summit, heck, even on your podcast, indeed, because this is a 5 out of 5 star guest, baby. That's right, indeed. Great
Thank you.
personality, great voice, and she knows how to communicate, y'all. That's right, indeed. And she's got stories to tell, and women are kicking lots of butts, too, so she'll be great for the ladies as well. And she probably knows some self-defense since she's traveling solo, so that's
Oh my
good
God, I
too.
did take, yep, I did take a class called model mugging, and we did not mug models. It was called model mugging as a teenager. So yeah, so that's a good skill set to have.
So that means she can break your arm in 3 places. That's why she's traveling solo, y'all.
Hopefully I don't have to.
Yeah. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. It's either that or mind control. That's right indeed.
Yes, the mind control is sort of easier and more pleasant, I have to say.
Yes, indeed. She's massaging my brain right now, listeners. Help. Help.
I'm massaging the abs into Hello Kitties right now. Yes.
All right, she's not 5 out of 5. She's 7 stars out of 5, y'all. So that's right.
Oh, the mind melding is working. It's perfect.
That's right, indeed. She loves having chocolate under control. But for those that need to keep in contact with you and keep up with your journey and follow you for all your wares, I can probably even cop one of your online courses if they want to get their feet moving to other parts of the globe. What's the best way for folks to do so?
Well, you can come to my website, which is fulltimetravelcoach.com or heatherbegins.com. And everything is there pretty much. I also have a Facebook group with over 4,000 people now who are current or future full-time travelers. So the link is there on the website as well. And I'd love to hear from you.
Woohoo! There you go. The Heather like to hear from you. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed, because Heather loves all the hearings, y'all. That's right. That's right. The good Talking about the good hearings, not the court hearings. That's totally different.
That is, yes, agreed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that happens in that Hello Kitty village 75 years from now. That's what that is.
They have court hearings. Oh my gosh, about Hello Kitty. Hello Kitty wins though, right? They wins all of the court hearings.
Yeah, it does. The Hello Kitty is the judge. Hello Kitty's everywhere.
Yeah, totally. And your lawyer's Hello Kitty and for both sides, and everybody gets confused and dismisses the case. That's how it goes.
Exactly. It's like a cat lady's like wet dream. It's like cats everywhere and Hello Kitty references everywhere. It's catter day every day.
Oh no, catter day. Yep. Yep.
Well, before we go too far down that meow hole, any parting words before we close the shop?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I would just encourage your audience just to really look. The world right now is having some interesting times, and if your heart calls you to travel full time, I would highly encourage you to do it, because putting things off till the perfect or the right time, who knows if there's going to be a right time. So make now the right time and go for it. And if you need some support in figuring out how the heck you're going to afford it or do it, then just reach out. I'm happy to help you.
Thanks a bunch for tuning in and setting aside some of your time to listen to this wonderful podcast, Going North. If you really enjoyed what you heard, do me a solid and share this with your network and someone that you care about that would get something out of it too. And be sure to subscribe to hear more, and heck, even check out the backlog if you would like, because there are hundreds of episodes to choose from, and they just keep getting better and not butter.